All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to In Tune. My name's Leon Harrell. If it's your first time joining us, say hello in the comments. Let me know your name and the instrument you play. Oh, wait, I think I might be muted. Let's see. No, I'm not. Let me check real quick before we jump into everything. Let's see. You. Oh, no, I'm not muted. Okay, great. So if you're your first time joining us, say hello in the comments. Let me know your name, the instrument you play, and where you're joining us from. We have folks join us from all over the world, so it's always nice to know where you're located. Let's say good morning to everyone in the comments. Good morning, David. David says, happy birthday. Today is my birthday. That's why we're playing happy birthday. Good morning, David. Good morning, Dawn. I see you there. And good morning, Rajiv Gautam. Good morning, Rajiv. James, welcome back, James. Welcome back, Sandy. Good morning, Sandy. All right. So if you're joining us for the first time, say hello in the comments so I know who's out there, your name, your instrument, and where you're joining us from. On today's show, we're going to play Happy Birthday, and we're going to talk about chord substitutions. But before we jump into everything, let's see, just another announcement. If you are following us on Patreon, we release our monthly easy piano arrangement on the first of every month. So that's coming up on December 1st. We'll have a Christmas medley for the month of December. So if you want to sign up for that, visit us at oneminutemusiclesson.com/support. I'll put a link up towards the end of the show, because if you pledge today, you'll sign up. Your payment will go through on the first of the month, and that's when the download will activate. So that's coming up. Also, I just wanted to take a quick poll in the chat, just to know what kind of keyboard or instrument do you play? Do you play an electric or digital keyboard? Or do you play an acoustic piano, or just some other instrument? So let me know in the chat. I'm curious about that because I'm sort of interested in doing a review of a digital keyboard. I use the Yamaha P45, and I was thinking about doing a review for that in December. So let me know. Do you use digital? Do you use acoustic? And if you're interested, let me know if you'd like to know more about a review of that. We're coming up on the holiday time, and I know a lot of people like to consider upgrading their instrument at that time of year. The other thing I wanted to ask you in the chat this morning is, have you ever tried playing from lead sheets? So we've been playing just standard sheet music for over the past couple weeks using a program called Piano Marvel, which we'll look at today to play Happy Birthday. But another way of notating music is called a lead sheet, which is just the melody is written in sheet music, and then the chord symbols are placed along the top. So that sort of relates to what we'll talk about today when we talk about chord substitutions. So looking in the chat here, let's see. Sandy says she has a Yamaha electric grand piano. David's got a Casio WK245. And David, yours is a 61 key, I want to say. I think you told me. Sandy says, yes, reviews of equipment, thanks. Don saying, digital piano, Yamaha, Clavinova. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, good to know. And then Don says also, yes, I've played from lead sheets with the guitar. Okay, cool, yeah. Played with lead sheets from guitar. Oh, I'm blocking that. But not piano. Cool. Well, the good thing about lead sheets is that if you've played them on one instrument, they work the same on every other instrument. But of course, the chords are, on the instrument differently. Oh, cool. Thank you, David. 76 key. Great. Okay, so cool. Well, we'll look into doing that for December. A little review of the Yamaha P45, which is what I use. But maybe we'll look at another couple models too. Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to jump into it today with Happy Birthday. And to do that, let's see, every week I try something different with my setup. So today I'm going to try, let's see, this button. Let's see, that's going to put us into Piano Marvel. But what I want to do is look at that with my new view I've set up with MIDI keys, which looks like this, so that you can see my a digital form of my keyboard. It's not my actual keyboard, and it'll show the notes as I play the notes. All right. My only main concern is how much lag time is there between the sound and the visual. I'm still working on that. So if you do find that it's lagging a lot today, just let me know in the comments and we'll work on that for next week. But again, we're going to look at Happy Birthday. This particular version is in F major, which is a pretty simple key to play Happy Birthday in, just one flat, B flat. And what we're going to do today is we're going to break apart the right hand. We'll play that first. We'll play the left hand second. The right hand has the melody. The left hand has chords in this case. And then we'll come back around and we'll talk about some chord substitutions. How do we jazz up some of these chords if we want to? So if you want to follow along, we're using a software called Piano Marvel. You can download a free 30-day trial of that by visiting 1minutemusiclesson.com/toolbox. You'll see a link to Piano Marvel there. And if you decide to use it past the 30-day trial, by signing up through our link, you'll also get an additional 20% off your monthly or annual subscription if you decide to move forward with that. So we're going to look at Piano Marvel Happy Birthday, and before we jump into the music, I'm just going to take you back to the library so you can see how did we get there. The simplest thing to do is to just go into the music library, and in your search for the title, just type Happy Birthday. There's a couple versions of Happy Birthday in Piano Marvel. I chose this one, which was a level 3 in F major. I think that one's fairly simple for anyone. But you may decide you want to just start with a level 1, which is just the melody alone, split across both hands. There's another simple arrangement in the Alfred Basic Adult all-in-one course, which is an excellent course. If you're sort of self-guiding at this point through your piano learning journey, check out that Alfred Adult all-in-one course. It really condenses their whole children's piano series, which is like, I don't know, 5 books maybe, into one concise book that's a little more geared towards adults as far as how quickly it moves along. But they have a version of Happy Birthday in that as well. There's a nice arrangement in the Grand Favorites for Piano, which is another collection I really like from Piano Marvel. It's a touch harder than the one we'll look at today, but it's not terribly difficult. And then you'll see a couple other ones in here. I haven't looked at this Piano Express one. And these 2 harmonization ones here, I believe they come from some college course that someone's uploaded their own arrangements in minor keys, just like as an exercise. But we're going to look at this one that's level 3, Happy Birthday in F major. And so the title tells us right away this is in F major. Usually we sort of go through our smart sight reading system and we figure all this out, but it just tells us in the name of this one it's F major. But just to verify that, we're going to look at the key signature to get us started. And what I like to do before I sight read anything or play through anything is just go through what I call my smart sight reading system. So I'll put that up on the screen, and we're going to, let me just take it back to page 1 here. We're going to talk through what scale are we using, what meter, what accidentals are present in this piece, what's the range of it, and what's the tempo. So we're going to start with the scale, which is F major, and I've made a new graphic this morning that I hope will help you a little bit to show the scale in a couple different forms, or excuse me, a couple different views, I guess. So I'm going to bring up on the screen as well, if I can, my keyboard. Let's see, bear with me. How would I add that? I would need to also screen share. You know, we'll save that for later. That might mess me up. It's complicated. We're going to read through this scale. We're going to play it on the keyboard or play it on your instrument. If you're new to playing, just say the pitches out loud. So, for example, when we play the notes, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, just say them out loud. So you'll be reading from this circle in the bottom left-hand corner. You'll read the top of the circle and read clockwise around the circle. If you're reading along for the sheet music, let's read the top one on the right, the scale. All right, so we'll read that. And then the other two things you see here, we see the same scale, the same F major scale, but I've just arranged it in a different way to help you think of different concepts. So in the middle, you'll see the chord scale, which is essentially just the same scale, but stacked in thirds. So we have F, A, C, E, and then we could continue up, but I just dropped them down in octave so you could stay within the same staff. G, B flat, and D. All right. Below that, you'll just see their positions within in that chord, just so you can reference them easily. We won't do a lot with that this morning. And then the bottom thing you see are just the same scale presented in descending fifths, which is a typical circle of fifths progression, which we'll talk a little bit about today, but I'd like to talk about that over the next couple lessons, I think. And what you'll see there is, starting on F, moving down fifths within the scale. So a fifth below F is B flat. Below that is E, down to A, down to D, down to G, down to C, and then that returns us to F. And if you don't know what a circle of fifths progression is, it's a very common progression of chords, especially used in jazz, but in all kinds of music. It's used in classical as well, where the harmonies, each chord, is moving with the root descending by a fifth. So it just sounds like this. The 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 7 chord, to the 3 chord, to the 2, to the 5, to the 1. All right, so it's just a nice forward motion harmonically. So I've put all that together on the slide so you can sort of follow along and use whichever piece makes the most sense for you. But let's get started by warming up with just a major scale. We'll play an octave. All right, we'll do that kind of slowly. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll repeat it from the top, starting on F. F, E, D, C, B flat, A, G, F. All right, we'll do it one more time to get warmed up. A lot of times I like to warm up with 2 octaves of the same scale. If you're a beginner, just stick to 1 octave. The purpose of playing the scale is a couplefold, but you want to make sure you're playing the correct notes. You want to make sure you're playing at a steady tempo. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to which, on the piano especially, which white notes have been altered with the key signature to be flatted or sharped, whatever the accidentals are. So in this case, the B natural becomes a B flat in the key of F major. All right, and then beyond that, you want to think about things like, what's the right finger to play with? What's the dynamics? How loud or soft? How smoothly are we connecting the phrase, the articulation or the phrasing of it? All of that, you'll get into later if you're a beginner. But, when we're first starting, all that really matters is, are you playing the correct pitches? So you can look at the pitch wheel on the left-hand side, starting with F at the top, moving up to G, to A, to B flat, to C, to D, to E, to F. And then we'll play it coming back down. F, E, D, C, B flat, A, G, F. All right? So the next thing I want to look at before we move on too much further is the chords section. So when we're thinking about chords, there's really one most golden rule that's good for a beginner to learn, because there's a lot of rules to chords and there's a lot of details to know. So rather than starting really specific on types of chords, the only thing I really want you to pay attention to is that chords in general are built by stacking notes in thirds. So if we look at this second example, we see the same scale, F. We're stacking a second third, that second note, A. And then we're stacking the next note, C. So those first three notes, and there's a very faint dotted line around those first three, it might be hard for you to see. When we play those first three notes together, that's the F major chord. All right, but if we continue on and just play each note in order, but the three consecutive notes, so the second one, if we start on A, and then C, and then E, now we're playing an A minor chord. We can continue through this exercise, starting on the third note, C, C, E, G. Now we're playing a C major chord, and continue on around it. All right, it's a good way to start to learn chords and all you're really doing is memorizing that we're using all the notes of one scale. This is F major, and we're starting on the root note F. All right, and to construct a chord, we're just stacking two more thirds on top. All right, there's different kinds of thirds. There's major thirds and minor thirds, occasionally an augmented or diminished. You don't see that often in thirds. All right, but all I'm wanting you to do is stack the notes from the scale, whatever they are, by third to start thinking about chords. All right, and that gives you an example, a visual example to work with. That last one there, again, we talked about, that is descending fifths to create a circle of fifths progression. And if you're a beginner, that's a lot to process. So I don't necessarily recommend you start from that place. But if you understand major and minor chords, a really good next place to move into is understanding the circle of fifths and understanding the progression of descending fifth progressions. Okay, so that's our scale. We're in F major. We're ready for F major. Let's look at the next component of our smart system, the meter. So the meter of this piece is 3/4, and 3/4 is considered a simple meter. So there's two main types of meter. There's simple meters that divide the beat into two equal pieces, which this one does. And then there's compound meters where the beat unit is a dotted note, like a dotted quarter note, and it's divided into three equal pieces. So those are compound meters. And I do find that understanding the distinction between the simple meter and the compound meter, that really is difficult for people that struggle to read music. So that's something I spend a lot of time on in my book. And if you haven't seen that before, I have a book called How to Read Music Easily in 30 Days. If you want to check out a copy of that, you can go to oneminutemusiclesson.com/book. In this book, really, it's an entire program laid out for if you've never read music before or you've never played an instrument before. It's just 30 consecutive lessons that are about, 15 minutes to an hour's worth of information a day. And it'll take you step by step through, how to read music, using all the same types of techniques we talk about on our show every week. So if we're looking back at our meter, again, this one's a simple meter, which just means the beat divides into two. So the beat in 3/4, there's 3 beats in every measure. Our top number tells us the number of beats in a simple meter. And our bottom number tells us what type of note is equivalent to a beat. So in 3/4, the 4 is telling us the bottom number. The beat is equivalent to a quarter note. So there's going to be 3 quarter notes in every measure. So on the screen here, you just see a circle representing a measure divided into 3 pieces because there's 3 beats in that measure. And then each piece is equivalent to a quarter note. We're just going to count that 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 as we count along in our music. When we look at sort of the next level of counting music, we want to count the division of the beat, which is usually, in a simple meter, is divided into 2 equal pieces. So that quarter note becomes 2 eighth notes. So we'll count that, counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. All right, that's all the rhythms we're really going to see in this piece, with the exception of the piece has a dotted half note and then a half note at the end where we're adding quarter notes together, and we'll talk about that as we get to it. Okay, so we've looked at our meter. Next, let's look at our range. So this particular piece, this arrangement does not have a large range, but we're going to see that the highest note in this piece is going to be our C, right in the middle of the treble staff. All right, so that's an octave above middle C. And then our lowest note is going to just be the C in the middle of the bass clef, which is an octave below middle C. So it's a 2-octave range. It's not a big range. And I'm going to switch to a slightly different view so we can discuss that a little more. Let's take a look at this view. All right, so our range is from the C below middle C to the C above middle C. All right, so when we think about range, our primary goal is to just situate your body in the middle of those 2 pitches. And really what you're sort of trying to do is establish some boundaries, some mental boundaries just for your physical presence at the keyboard. When we're sight reading in particular, or if we're playing a piece of music we've memorized or a piece that we just know is difficult for us, it's really easy to get distracted, start to feel anxious or nervous, or just you start to experience this sort of brain fog as you're playing, and you slowly just lose control of what your hands are doing or where your eyes are looking. So you're starting to just lose focus altogether. So the importance of looking at the range just gives us a nice place to anchor our bodies, because we know we're not going to move very far. We're just between 2 octaves here. We don't need to look further to the left of the keyboard, all down the left-hand range. We're not playing any of those keys. Same thing for the C at the top. We're not playing anything up in this upper range, so we don't need to turn our head and look over there. We really want to train ourselves when we're sight reading to be as still as possible, to breathe slowly and remain calm as we're reading. And establishing that range up front helps us do that. It seems very simple, but that's a very critical part of the process. All right, the last, we skipped over our accidentals. Let's go back and look for our accidentals. In this piece, we know we're in the key of F major. All our B's are B flats. So here's some examples. There's some B flats there. There's another one. But there's no additional accidentals in this piece. So it's all diatonic, meaning it all fits into the key of F major. So it's a little bit simpler for us to sight read. Okay, and then our last thing is our tempo. Our tempo for this, Happy Birthday could be sung at any tempo, but usually, you sing it about the tempo it takes you to say the words. So let's see. Piano Marvel's got us at 120 beats a minute. Let's take a listen and see how fast that is.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
mean, that's a nice tempo, I suppose, if you're singing it, but usually a crowd of people sings it a little bit slower, maybe at about 90 beats a minute. Okay, last thing we want to do, we're going to slow it down to 90, so when we sight read it, it'll be lower. Yeah, and in our practice mode, actually our practice mode has it at 70. We'll read it at 70 just to give you plenty of time to read it. One last thing I want to say about this before we start. Happy Birthday is usually, the rhythms are played in a shuffle or with a bit of a swing to them. So what that means is the eighth notes are not steady. So when we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and, we can play it just like that. So if we were to play it 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1. But often there's a little bit of a shuffle to the eighth notes. So that can look two different ways in music. You might have like a triplet pattern where it's a quarter note and an eighth note triplet, which sounds dot, 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 like so. So when we hear Happy Birthday, we'll hear 3, a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, 3, 1. Or if it's truly triplet, we might count 3 lolly. So 1, 2, 3 lolly, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Sorry, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 1. But when pieces are written with, if a piece is played in a swing or a shuffle style, often the composer just notates it as is with just straight eighth notes. It's easier to read, especially in like a jazz solo. It just makes the sheet music so much more clear, and you know to just shuffle or displace that second eighth note. Okay, so that's just a tidbit to think about as you play this. So as we count this, we're going to read it with straight eighth notes, just so that you can understand the counting very clearly. We won't shuffle the rhythm at all. Okay, so we are ready. Let's sight read the right hand only. So we're going to go into Piano Marvel and click Practice. We're going to do the right hand. And why don't we take this kind of slowly. We're going to do it in immense mode. We're going to do right hand, measures 1 through 5 only at 70 beats per minute. And we are, we're going to talk a little bit about hand position. So how do we know where to put our hand to start? Where is our hand going to move throughout this exercise here? We're going to talk again about range. So the bottom note of the range of just this excerpt, this small amount of music. The lowest note is C, our first note. And our highest note is G over here in the right hand. So all together, we're just playing a fifth from the C to the G. And those notes in between. Those are all the pitches we're going to play. So if we're wondering, well, where does my hand move or where does my hand go? It's all together on these 5 keys. It doesn't need to move anywhere extra. So you might call that hand position middle C position, where we have our thumb on middle C. All right, and the rest of our fingers in order on the rest of the notes. And that's a good place to start this because that's going to take care of the entire first half of the melody. All right, so before we read this or play it on the keyboard, we're going to count it. Then we're going to read the pitches in rhythm. Then we're going to play it on the keyboard. Okay, so we'll do it 3 different ways. Okay, so hands up. We're going to clap it first. All right. This piece starts on what's called an anacrusis or a pickup measure, which just means the first measure is incomplete. There's only 1 beat. There's 2 eighth notes there. And when a piece starts with an anacrusis or a pickup measure, you will usually have however much time is in a measure. This has 3 beats per measure. That first measure has 1 beat. So the last measure of the piece usually has the remaining number of beats. So this piece ends with a measure with just 2 beats in the measure on that F. All right, so we sort of distribute that measure from the first measure and the very last measure. Okay, so we'll start on beat 3 when we count it. All right, so hands up, we're going to count 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and on beat 3 of the second measure, we'll start clapping. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And we'll stop there. All right, so we have two short phrases. The rhythm's exactly the same. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then it repeats. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All right. Now let's say it on the pitches. Okay, so the same rhythm, same exercise, but now we'll read the notes themselves. C, C, D, C, etc. While we do that, I'm going to play it on the keyboard so you can watch the keys moving. And do let me know in the comments if you notice some lag on this, just because I'm curious about that. Okay, so we're starting on C. All right. And we will say the pitch names next. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. C, C, D, C, F, E, C, C, D, C, G, F. All right, so take a moment. Try that yourself on your own instrument. I'll tell you, I can remember being younger and learning to play Happy Birthday for the first time. The thing that always confused me when I was a beginning learner, or when I was trying to like remember how to play it from memory, the leap between the C and the F is the first phrase. And then the second phrase, the leap, is from C to G. All right? They're very similar in distance on the keyboard, but the difference of that one note, that's what makes the two phrases different. Okay. Oh, good. David says the lag is solved now. Great. Let's go ahead and put it together. We're going to play it on the keyboard. All right. When you play it on the keyboard, you can choose. Do you want to play it and count it? That's probably what I'd recommend if you are comfortable with your notes of the keyboard. If you know where the pitches on the keyboard are without a lot of problem, go ahead and do that. Count it out loud. Or if you want to work more on your rhythm, do the counting out loud. If you want to work more on your note reading in the staff, say the pitches out loud as you read them and play them. Okay, so I'm going to do it counting one time, and then I'm going to do it one time saying the pitches out loud. So we'll do this twice. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. C, C, D, C, F, E, C, C, D, C, G, F. All right, so that's one time with the pitches. Now let's try it one time with the counting. All right, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Excellent. All right, so that's our right hand on the first half of the melody. Let's look at the second half of the melody, which is, it's also simple as well. So let's look at measures 5 through 9 in the right hand. Again, we start on the same note, that same middle C. All right, but the next note is an octave above. So this is where our hand position is going to change. So if you want to sort of feel, how does that feel? Place your thumb on the C and place your pinky on that top C. All right, so look at your hand at the keyboard and notice how far of a span that is for you when you play that. All All right. I won't tell you every finger to play for the rest of the notes because when you're thinking about what finger to play, it's not so much important which finger you use. What you're trying to do is sort of a conservation of motion. You're trying to not move the hand or the arm and the elbow. Try to keep your hand, your arm, and your elbow all stationary. All right, and that will help you sort of automatically choose the correct fingers. Often when we play our thumb, that's a place where we'll switch positions with our hand. So we're going to play this melody here, C, 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 A, F, da, 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 D, D. We're going to land our thumb on that D at the bottom. All right, so that's the only finger I want you to really pay attention to. Okay, so when we land on the D, we'll land on our thumb. And that's going to prepare us for moving into the rest of the piece. B flat, A, F, G, F. All right? Okay, let's give that one a try again. So we're going to count it, say the pitches, play it, and then when we play it, we'll choose, do we want to count the pitches along or say the pitches along while we play it? Okay? Let's count it first. So here we go, hands up, clapping. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All right. We're going to do it this time with pitches. All right. I'll play the keyboard so you can hear them, but you're just saying the names of the notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. C, 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 A, F, E, D, B flat, A, F, G, F. All right, and now you'll play it on the keyboard. So place your thumb on middle C. Place your pinky on the C above. All right, and now we're going to read it together. So I recommend you say the pitches. I'm sure you know the rhythm to Happy Birthday already. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. C, 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 A, F, E, D, B flat, A, F, G, F. All right, so as we're reading this, we're just reading the sheet music just as it is, and that's the real goal of sight reading. You just want to read the notes just how they are on the page. And you want to interpret what the sheet music's telling you. Well, if you've sang Happy Birthday, and I know you have, when we sing, Happy Birthday, dear Leon, or whoever you're singing it to, the E and the D, that's where we say the person's name. We always sort of wait on the D. There's a fermata or a hold. We play beat 2 much longer than it really is. So that beat 3, we come back in and we sort of start the tempo back up at beat 3. So what we're expecting to see, we don't see in the score. We don't see a fermata, which sort of looks like an arc with a dot in the middle. We'll look at a fermata at some point. We might see one in another arrangement if we can find one. So what I would like you to do when you're sight reading, stay very focused on just what the paper is telling you. And when you play a song you know by memory or you're very aware of and accustomed to singing, it's very hard to do exactly what the rhythm is telling you. You want to do the thing you know in your mind to be like what's common. So you may be tempted to play this D for much longer than the rhythm is telling you to play it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's musical interpretation. But that's different than the act of really trying to accurately sight read whatever your music's telling you. Okay, so let's play that second part of the melody one last time. I'm going to count it this time. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Excellent. So that's our right hand. We're going to move into the left hand. So we're going to go back into minced mode. Left hand measures 1 through 5. All right. And before we jump into this, I'll tell you, if you've never used Piano Marvel, it's got some great practice tools. You'll notice here you can play the whole piece. You can chop it into smaller sections, or the minced version is the tiniest little section. So it's breaking apart smaller measures, left hand, right hand, etc. So that's what we're doing. Minced measures 5 through 9, right hand only, and we're doing this at 70 beats per minute. Sorry, not right hand, left hand. Left hand. And let's go back to measures 1 through 5, sorry. So we're going to look at these first 4 chords in the left hand. And if you are a person who you're not comfortable yet reading multiple notes at a time, stay focused on just playing the bottom note. So that bottom note, C, it stays the same through almost the whole piece. So every note is C on the bottom. All right. When we get into the last phrase, there'll be one change on B flat. Okay? So what you want to do is keep your pinky on that C. Don't move your pinky at all. The next 2 notes, read it from the bottom up. So we've got C on the bottom, F just above that, and then A just above that. All right? So when we're sight reading chords and multiple notes at a time, you may be at a place where you just need to read note by note, and that's fine. Everybody starts there. So always read from the bottom up. And the reason you do that is that the bass note is more necessary in most music to being the correct harmony or the correct chord, or helping the melody sort of move along and make sense. The alto and tenor voices, those upper voices, they add to the harmony, but they're often not as essential. And that's not always true, it's just most of the time. So stay focused on the bottom note if you're a total beginner. If you're a little above that, try reading the intervals. And what I mean by that is the distance between the notes. So if we look at that first chord, C on the bottom, the next note above it is a fourth, or it's the space of 4 notes. C, D, E, F. That's 4 notes. From the top to the bottom is a fourth. This particular fourth is called a perfect fourth. And then repeat that. From the F to the A is a third. All right? So what we're trying to do is sort of mentally read the intervals rather than every single note name, C, F, and A. 2 different ways of thinking about it, but the interval approach, when you get comfortable with it, it's faster because really all you're doing is reading the amount of space your hand needs to move. So think about that. That's called intervallic reading, and I go into that a lot in my book. All right, so we're going to read this first chord from the bottom up, C, F, A. Second chord, C, E, G. Third chord, C, E, B flat. And then the last chord is the same as the first, C, F, A. All right, so let's listen to them one time. All right, so really we just have 2 types of chords. We have tonic, the resting tone chord, the dominant chord, a dominant 7th chord, and back to tonic. And that's going to come in handy when we talk about substituting chords. Okay? All right, so let's play them in rhythm. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. CFA, 2, 3. CEG, 2, 3. CEB flat, 2, 3. CFA, 2, 3. All right. Now let's try the second part. So we're going to go practice, Left hand measures 5 through 9. All right, pretty similar. They're all the same chords are there. There's just one more added in the second measure. So our first measure, measure 6. We've got C, F, A. All right. Second measure, B flat, D, F. And this is where you're going to have trouble. So when you're playing the music, you're going to have to lift your hand off the keyboard from this first chord position, C, F, and A. Lift your hand up completely, but pay attention with your pinky and look at the B flat on your keyboard. Use your pinky to guide where you're landing. So B flat, D, and F. All right, and then return to the original chord. C, F, A is the next chord here. All right, C, E, B flat. And then we end on C, F, A. Okay, so this piece is really only using 4 chords. We've got the tonic chord, an F major, the dominant chord, a C major, that we also add a 7th to occasionally, so dominant 7. We have 1 B flat chord, the 4 chord, and then back to 1. All right, so those are the 3 major chords found in a major scale, 1, 4, and 5. You'll hear them all over the place in music. Okay, so let's try putting it together. Let's do measures 1 through 5, hands together. All right, we'll do it kind of slow. All right, thumb on middle C for your right hand, pinky on the C in the left hand. All right, get your left hand chord in position. So play the chord, get your hand there. All right, and then in your right hand, sort of get your ring finger positioned over the F. That's the one where you're going to have that first moment of like, oh God, how high up is that letter or is that key? Okay, so our hands are ready. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All right, we'll do that one more time. So from measures 1 to the downbeat of measure 5. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. C, C, D, C, F, E, C, C, D, C, G, F. Excellent. Let's move on to the second phrase. All right, so we'll practice measures 5 through 9. All right, so we're starting up here on the downbeat of 3. All right, right there. All right, so here we go, hands together. Thumb on C, left hand pinky on the C below. And put your right hand, your pinky on your right hand, go ahead and get it in position for that C above middle C. All right, so here we go, reading it hands together. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1. All right. Let me know in the comments if you're like me when you get to measure 7, where we play the B flat. That's the part where I have to look at my hands or think a little bit more than the rest of the piece. So it's much easier to make a mistake in that spot. So be aware at measure 7, most people will have the most trouble at measure 7. Okay, let's try it one last time. All right, fingers in position. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, Excellent. All right, so we're going to put it all together. We're going to do this in assessment mode. We're going to practice the whole piece, hands together. We'll do it at 70 beats per minute. Okay, and we're going to do this in assess mode. So Piano Marvel has two modes. Prepare mode, where we're the driver of the tempo, and that tells us, you know, it only moves forward when you play the right note. Assess mode, it moves ahead forward automatically with the metronome. So we're going to do it in assess mode. All right, and it's going to count us off and we'll play along. It's just going to count one measure for us. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Excellent. All right, and it's going to add up our score. Okay, so that is going to be it for reading the piece. Let's clear that out. I want to talk very quickly about chord substitution. So I'm going to click here on the PDF at the top right corner, just so we can see a PDF version of this music. And I'm going to open this actually in my preview app. And that way we can write on the screen just a little bit. And view my markup tools. All right, so when we talk about chord substitution, what does that mean? That just means whatever chord we're playing, we're swapping out a different chord, maybe to just give it a different color or a different sort of flavor to the sound. When you're starting to learn about chord substitutions, there's a lot of music theory you'll want to understand to truly get the concept. But some things that are easy to do that really anybody can try. You can try adding just a third below or above whatever the chord is. So I'm going to write in the chords just to make that really easy for us. And let's see, let's do... All right, oh, it's giving me a weird message here. Let's choose a color we can all read. Here we go. So this is... first chord is an F. Second chord is a C chord. Next two chords, we've got C7. Last chord, we're back to F. Bottom four chords, we've got a couple chords here. So we've got F, we've got a B flat, we're back to an F chord, a C7, and an F. So when we talk about chord substitutions, we're just going to take whatever the root note is, whatever the name of the chord is, and we're just going to play a third below that from the earlier examples we talked about. So for example, we might swap out the first F. So instead of F, a third below that is D. All right, so in the key of F major, the D chord is D minor. So it might sound like this. All right, and that doesn't make a huge difference. But it is a little different. So anywhere we see an F, we might swap it out for D minor. All right. David asked a quick question. Is the fermata over the D in measure 6. That is correct. Yes. And when we were reading it in Piano Marvel, we didn't see a fermata, but in this PDF version, they've put in the fermata. Good question. Thank you for asking me. Oh, and Don mentions, yeah, shows the fermata you were talking about. Let's try changing the F in the last measure to D minor. All right, so this is going to give us our C7 resolving to D minor. And that's a type of cadence called a deceptive cadence. All right, and you don't need to know all the details of that, but it's usually more effective. So let's listen to it. All right, so that jazzes it up just a little bit to land on the D minor. Next measure. I think in particular, a lot of times when we hear those last two B flats, we'll hear them with a B flat minor chord. All right, and B flat minor happens to be the minor 4 chord borrowed from F minor. And again, you don't need to understand all the technical things we're talking about, but one simple solution to try when you're reharmonizing or substituting chords, just swap the major chord for its own minor chord. And you know, there's ones that work and ones that don't, but all you have to do is try it to see what you think. So let's try it. After the fermata, I'll add in B flat minor, which is pretty typical in this in Happy Birthday. I'll play D minor. And here's B flat minor. All right, one last chord I'll share with you. If we end our piece, instead of ending on the tonic or the root chord of the scale, if we go down a whole step, so in this case E flat, that will extend the resolution of the final chord. All right, so we'll go from E flat to F major. All right, if we're understanding analysis, that's our flat 7 leading back to 1, and flat 7's also borrowed from the minor. Linda asked a quick question here. Are there other intervals that you can use to swap out other chords? Yeah, you can try other intervals. Basically, all you're doing when you're substituting any chord that's in the key itself, you're just going through the different chords to try them out. Well, the third below is always going to be the relative minor or maybe the relative major from whatever you're playing. So basically, you're just trying the relative major or minor chord. And what that means is it shares two of the same notes. So for the first chord, F major, F, A, C. Well, it's relative minor. A third below is D minor. And it shares two of the same notes. The F and the A are in both of those chords. So really, the more notes two chords share, the more likely they can be substituted for each other. If you want to just sort of keep going with that interval approach, try an interval of a fifth below. So if we were to play a fifth below a couple chords, let's try that first melody with F. So instead of F, a fifth below is B flat. All right, and it might sound like this, which is more, I don't know, has sort of like a progressive quality to it. So a fifth below is a good one to try. And then the second technique we talked about was swapping the major chord for the minor. And it doesn't work everywhere, so if we try in the beginning, F minor. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great. So just swapping major for minor. And then the last one we're talking about here, we've added this E flat at the end. So just a whole step below whatever the chord is. So let's play it and listen to it with that E flat added in. D minor, B flat minor, and then on E flat, All right, so we're just extending it. All right, so that's the flat 7 borrowed from the minor. So if you want to go down the rabbit hole a little more with chord substitutions, spend some time looking into the parallel minor, or borrowing from the minor scale. That will get you pretty far in using lots of chord substitutions. If you want to keep it simple, just try playing a note a third below whatever the chord is. You might try a fifth below, or you might try the whole step below. In some cases, like the final chord of the piece, a whole step below will work. We're going to spend some more time talking about harmony and chord substitutions throughout the month of December. So if you liked what we talked about today, let me know in the comments, or if you're watching it on the replay, let me know if you like that sort of thing. And we'll explore that in a little more detail. Next week, we will do a preview of our Christmas sheet music from Piano Marvel. There's tons and tons of that's been added recently. I just played through the Beach Boys' Little Saint Nick the other day. That was a fun one to look at. But there's a lot of new stuff they've added recently for Christmas. So check that out if you're interested. So we'll do a preview of Christmas sheet music. As we wrap up today, I just want to say a quick thank you to our patrons. All right, very special thanks to all our patrons who are helping us achieve our mission to spread music literacy around the world. If you want to learn more about how you can become our patron, or just support our channel in general, visit oneminutemusiclesson.com/support. Another thing I want to answer real quickly, in our mailbag, I got a question from David, actually, that had asked, could you talk a little bit more about conservation of visual information, or conservation of motion? So I talk about that a lot on the show. When you're sight reading, the way to sight read successfully is to conserve your mental energy and your physical motion in your hands at the keyboard. And in my book, I talk about that throughout the book. But one thing to think about when I'm talking about conservation, what I'm really trying to say to you is we're trying to quiet the mind and still the mind so that we can be super laser focused on just the things we're doing. So the order we did things today, where we counted through the music, we read the names of the notes, the pitches, and then we played it on the keyboard, counting it together or saying the pitches while we played it, and then we finish just playing it without doing the extra things. When we do it in that order, we're really practicing it in the order that our brain needs to do it to successfully sight read it smoothly. So I'm just sort of prescribing the order to you. But if I had to boil that down, the key thing to think about when you're practicing or sight reading, and it's the same thing every teacher's going to tell you, is to do it slowly. Do it at the tempo you can do it. But what I really want you to take away from that is, no matter what skill level you have or how you feel about your sight reading. I played piano for 20 years and had terrible sight reading, and I felt terrible about why am I never getting any better. You honestly do have to do it at such a snail's pace when you're improving the skill, that you're giving your brain time to process all that information very smoothly. So you're probably in a place now where, oh God, this feels slow, this is taking forever, and I understand that. You may be someone who's played your instrument for 20 years and you still feel like, oh God, I'm terrible at sight reading. And that's what my book's all about, because that was the reason I wrote the book. I was awful at sight reading even after completing my bachelor's degree in music. And then in my master's degree, I became a professor and started teaching, and I had to get better at this skill. So through all the things I learned, I ended up writing that book because that was the method I was teaching my students. So we'll explore that more over the weeks as we continue to do our show. But thanks for asking the question, David, and we'll continue to sort of hammer on that every week a little bit at a time, because there's a lot to know. But the golden rule there is you want to stay calm, mentally calm as you're sight reading, because that's the real secret. The more our brain is sort of buzzing with activity and information, the worse the sight reading is. So that's that for today's mailbag. So good question, David. Thanks for asking. That's going to be it for today. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for the birthday wishes. I've seen them all come in through the chat here. I hope you've enjoyed sight reading through Happy Birthday. Check it out in Piano Marvel if you want to try some other versions. And just to catch a couple quick comments here. Yeah, David says, so yeah, the key is to go slow. Yeah, the key really is to go slow enough that you're processing the information without making mistakes. Because every time you do it without a mistake, you're building the muscle to do it faster and faster. And slow practice, done intentionally in sort of the correct way, will lead to fast, flawless performance much quicker than sort of flawed practice habits. So anywho, that's going to be it for In Tune today. Thank you all so much for joining and saying happy birthday. I really appreciate that. And I'll see you next week on the next episode of In Tune. Take care, guys. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.